group, a surprising group of Americans, came out today publicly saying that, yes, they agree with President Obama, that the policies of Dick Cheney have made them less safe. Our third story tonight, the Republicans who say Mr. Cheney's current policy of opening his mouth is making them less safe in their jobs. In Cheney's recent interviews, he has said that the Obama rollback of Bush-Cheney policies like, torture, kidnapping, scrapping due process, they have made America less safe and more open to attack. Sunday night, Mr. Obama responded.
I fundamentally disagree with Dick Cheney, not surprisingly. I think that Vice President Cheney has been at the head of a movement whose notion is somehow that we can't reconcile our core values, our Constitution, our belief that we don't torture, with our national security interests.
24 hours after that interview aired, the newspaper The Hill posting an article quoting almost half a dozen Republicans not defending Cheney, but defending their careers. Tennessee Congressman John Duncan, Republican, quote, he, Cheney, became so unpopular while he was in the White House that it would probably be better for us politically if he wouldn't be so public. Tennessee Congressman Zach Wamp, Republican, quote, with all due respect to the former Vice President Cheney, he represents what's behind us, not what's ahead of us. We should focus on the people that will lead us tomorrow. Illinois Congressman Mark Kirk, Republican, quote, I would just encourage everybody who has left office to follow the tradition of the Founding Fathers, pass away, to write your memoirs. Tending a legacy is best done in a memoir. And Michigan Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, Republican, with perhaps the most damning assessment of Cheney's remarks of all. Quote, politically, it's irrelevant. With us now, Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation magazine. Chris, thanks for your time again tonight.
Thank you, Keith.
Are those cherry-picked quotes, or do they represent some sort of broad consensus among Capitol Hill Republicans that Mr. Cheney should go back to the proverbial undisclosed location and undisclose, or in this case, close his mouth?
Well, I mean, you would have to be a total moron not to understand the politics of Dick Cheney. I mean, he's a toxic figure politically. He was what Thad McCarter said was absolutely right. I mean, he left, I guess Mark Kirk said, he left office as probably one of the least popular figures, the most distrusted figures in American life. And I haven't seen any recent polling on him because he's no longer in office, but I assume that continues to be the case. So he's totally toxic, and they're absolutely right.
Yeah, we'll attribute that one to John Duncan from Tennessee, who made that observation.
Right.
But basically, they're all saying the same thing, and that raises the question, why did they say anything at all? Why go public with this rather than go discreet? Is there an implication there that private hints had been made to Mr. Cheney and maybe failed to get him to close his big bazoo? And what does that tell us?
Well, it's hard to speculate on that. I actually don't know the degree to which there's any back channel, conversations or communications going on between the former vice president and congressional Republicans. I suspect there probably aren't a ton. I think this is actually more of the case that they don't have anything to fear from that guy anymore. And for a long time, I think they were probably terrified of him. And now that they don't, they could, they feel perfectly liberated to repudiate him.
Now, the president's response was maybe more interesting than anything else. The man who's always the calmest guy in the room, you could see the look in his eyes when this was raised. I mean, the president did not focus solely on the merits of his own policies in that answer. He called Mr. Cheney out and in essence disparaged Cheney's understanding of American principles. Why mix it up with a former vice president in such a public venue?
Well, two things. One, for the exact same reasons that Republicans are distancing themselves from him, which is that he's a very unpopular figure, and so attacking him is probably a political win. And two, because, the vision that Dick Cheney oversaw of American security while he was in the vice president's office is truly corrosive to the very fabric of constitutional governance. And I think whatever shortcomings there have been in this president's handling of the war on terror and national security, and there have been significant shortcomings, that he fundamentally understands at a deep level of principle that the course that we were on was unacceptable, and he doesn't agree with continuing it.
And one gets the feeling also that Mr. Cheney doesn't get the real sense that the more he talks, the more he may be inviting further inquiry into what he did. In any event, Chris Hayes of The Nation staying late with us tonight. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Keith.